Everyone. Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a really great friend who's popped in to visit us, Leanne Sumner. Hi Leanne.
Hi AJ.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be talking and catching up with you.
Oh, it's always good to see you. We normally do this in person, so online is a little different.
Big hugs over the computer.
That's it. What I want to do is just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm currently on at the moment. I'm here in Baldwin Q on the land of the Wurundjeri people. So I pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging.
Well, I'm very excited to say that I'm on my traditional country. So I'm a Gunditjamara woman. I returned home to live on country. So it's very exciting to be on my family's land at the moment.
Cool. So just before we do start, just introduce yourself to us, who you are, where you're from.
So I'm a proud Gunditjamara woman. We're known as the Fighting Gunditjamara. My name's Leanne Sumner. I have been working in Melbourne for most of my career. Just returned home to start working back here again to support community here. People would probably know me because I worked for a decade at Monash Health as an Aboriginal hospital liaison, and that's where we met.
And we did meet there as well. Yes, I remember that. That was a while ago. It was like 20 years ago.
It was.
And we've both aged gracefully since then.
I know, improved with age like wine.
Hey, I'm going to ask you a few questions while you popped on to talk to me today. The first question I've got is, tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
So I grew up on a dairy farm. My family lived in a little place called Princetown, which is just near Port Campbell and the 12 Apostles. So I've moved probably about half an hour away from where I actually grew up. It's the most beautiful, part of the world. It really is. If you haven't had a chance to come and see the 12 Apostles and London Bridge and, all of the magnificent landscape that's here. And I'm currently working in a role that I'm actually part of supporting the local environment and, protecting it and taking care of it.
Yeah. So you recently moved back home.
I did.
What prompted that?
Oh, my auntie. She kept on saying to me, you're the eldest grandchild, you've got responsibilities, you've got to return back on country. And so I'd been working on it for like the last 10 years. And I'm really excited to be home, but I'm really sad because she actually passed away before I got to come home. So I feel like, it's sort of bittersweet that she's not here to get to see that.
Yeah. And what people may not know is you bought a little farm.
We registered as a business, Bush Tucker Farm. So we're going to have like a farm stay here with people being able to learn about culture and understand about, Aboriginal bush tucker, and it'll be really exciting.
Yeah. How long before that might be up and running?
Oh, look, how big is a piece of string? It should have actually happened already. We'd already purchased the farm stay property to be on here, and we actually had 2 huge piles of trees that have been ready to be burnt when we bought the property, and they just got burnt about a month ago. So look, it could be any day. We're just waiting on them delivering the cottage, and
sounds really exciting.
It's very exciting. You should have seen the bonfire. It was really spectacular.
Yeah. And at the moment, you've got some beautiful animals on the farm as well, haven't you?
We do, and we've named them after family members and people that are special to us. And it's been really incredible, seeing their personalities. And there's a really incredible Aboriginal elder, Damien Bell, that I've just got so much respect for. And his mum is my mum's first cousin, and he's been really incredibly supportive to me. And so we've got a Highland bull that we've named after him, and he's very much the life of the farm, and you can't miss him being here. So it really fits with, Damien's personality. Big, bold and beautiful.
Hey, so growing up at school, did you grow up with what sort of Aboriginal studies did you learn at school?
Oh, nothing. Come on. Uh, you know, in a lot of regional areas, there's a lot of racism. I grew up with lots of experiences of my mum being prejudiced because she looks very obviously Aboriginal. So for me, it was a real struggle at first, sort of looking at myself and trying to understand who I was and where I fitted between my dad's culture and my mum's culture. And, I was very lucky though, because I grew up in an Aboriginal community with Aboriginal family that were very much part of my upbringing that, promptly informed me about who I was and what mattered. And yeah.
What's the best thing you remember about growing up?
I think that connection. I think, being in a small country area, we all went to, primary school together. We all went to high school together. We all played tennis together. We all, went to the footy together. So, everyone knew everyone and everyone cared about everyone. And I think one of the things that really struck me with moving home was, my husband had grown up in, Springvale and, so moving to the country, I remember seeing him waving at someone. I said, "Oh, do you know him?" And he said, "No." He said, "That's just what they do here." Like everyone that drives past waves at everyone and knows who you are. And I remember
he's blended in with the locals already.
Yeah, he was kind of like, we were at the petrol station and someone said to him, "Oh, you haven't had that pile of trees burnt yet. What's happening with that?" And we're sort of looking at each other like, how in the hell do they know where we live? But everyone knows.
Yeah. And what's the best thing about being home on country?
I think there's nothing like being where, your ancestors are from. I feel them really strongly. We've got a beautiful woodland area just at the back of where our house is, just a natural area that's, and I just feel like the ancestors are there. I just feel that energy of like they're looking over us and protecting us. And we've got a family of wedge-tailed eagles. So because we've sort of got part of it that's, a hilly area, seeing them flying over us, it just reminds us, that Bundle's here and protecting us and caring for us. And, it's just that energy of I'm home. I'm home.
What's when you talk about home for non-Indigenous people, what does that actually mean to you?
I think it's that connection to the earth. I think you can just feel that energy coming out of the ground. You can feel and absorb all of the generations of ancestors that have walked on this ground and protected it and cared for it and nurtured it. And, it's just all those little things like seeing some of the, traditional plant life, allowing it to grow back and, regenerating and caring for it. It's just, there's just nothing like that energy that you get from that environment. And, there's nothing like waking up and I just see trees, and of a night I can see the stars. Living in Melbourne all these years, with all the smog and street lights, you never see the stars like you see in the country. So being able to lay in bed and just look at those stars and look at that sky and, feel that energy, it's really just so nurturing.
Yeah. What do you think if people got a chance to come down to the area that you're in now, what would you want them to look at? What do you want them to know?
I really wanted to have this experience because I found with my connecting with people who weren't from an Aboriginal background, it's very hard to really absorb that, you've got that experience of it, absorb the knowledge about what it is to be Aboriginal and how it impacts on your life, that transgenerational trauma. So being able to be in a really safe, nurturing space where we've got the bush tucker. We can, if that's something that they want to do, we can go for a walk, explain about the bush tucker, how to grow it, what it's about, what the health benefits of it are. One of the things I found really interesting was the impact on my nana growing up. Would always be like, take your shoes off, and just feel the earth under your feet.
Yeah.
And if you're going to wear shoes, we would always get the gum leaf and we'd rub it on, which she'd say is, your voice box. That's your communication tool. So rub the gum leaf into your chest here so it gets that communication happening, and then put them into your shoes. And she'd say, this is to remind you that you're walking on our ancestors' country, and to walk, to tread carefully on it, to make sure that wherever you're walking and whatever you're doing, that you carry that, ancestors, energy with you, and you appreciate the land that you're walking on, and you care for it. You don't put rubbish, you don't kick it, you don't, spoil the environment that you're in. Yeah. So I think being able to share that with kids, saying to them, here's some gum leaves, get rid of your smelly feet, put the gum leaves in your shoes. Yeah, and I think those are the kinds of things that I want them to know from my culture. I want them to understand about how important the environment is, how important the land is, and how to respect it and appreciate it.
What's the major issues you think young people are facing today, Aboriginal young people are facing today?
I think confidence. I think it's such a massive thing. I think in every way, shape or form, you're challenged. You're challenged with your Aboriginality, you're challenged with what direction you're going in, you're challenged with what your future might be, you're challenged with, am I going to pass at school? Am I going to get a job? Am I going to be able to buy a house? It's a lot of pressure. When we were growing up, we knew we could get a job. If one job didn't work today, we could walk into another job tomorrow.
Yeah.
We just expected if we worked hard, we would be able to buy a house. We'd be able to have the future that we dreamed of. And I think now for the youth, that's really challenging. And I don't like to say it, but it's really on my mind at the moment about how much racism and prejudice there is. I've just found it really, I guess because I'm in such a healing space, it's really impacting on me because we just recently had one of the elders from here had just done an art installation. And it was so beautiful. It was just the most spectacular, art installation. And I thought, oh, how amazing for, everyone to be able to appreciate and enjoy the story behind it and the love that was put into it. And the amount of really nasty, vicious, racism that was, commented on this artwork. And I just see it again and again and again. And I think, what's happening in this world that people are taking something that's such a beautiful, positive thing and turning it into such a racist, nasty, why? I mean, it's probably not politically correct to talk about, but I just think, all of this, the voice and your rook and the treaty and, it's just creating this environment of people feeling whatever they're feeling, but in a negative way. Yeah. It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I'm seeing it quite a lot on social media. The kids that I work with are saying they're noticing a lot more. And I think it's the white fragility that's kind of hitting people when they're confronted with history and understanding. And if they've never been taught it to start off with, it is quite threatening towards them.
I think it's a real challenge. I had a friend recently who I've known for many years, and they're a good person, and they made a comment on their Facebook page about, well, I didn't do it, so why should I say I'm sorry? And I really had to struggle with that I can't just sit by and not say something. So I had a conversation with them, and said, well, if someone dies, that's not your fault. But surely you acknowledge and say, I'm sorry that person's died.
Yeah.
And to us, those kinds of losses are deaths. They are something to be mourned. And it doesn't matter that, I wasn't part of it or they weren't part of it. Why can't you say sorry? Why is it so hard to not acknowledge other people's pain and other people's trauma? It really threw me. I just thought, how can someone that I've known for so long have that kind of attitude?
Yeah. Did you have any role models growing up? And if so, who?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my family, of course. And I think also the Aboriginal elders, we've got an Aboriginal elder here, Uncle Banjo Clark, that he really helped me with my understanding about who I am and, what matters. And, because he lived very traditionally. He was a very cultural man, and he was a very strong man in his culture. And so his sharing it and his discussing it really challenged me to think about what mattered to me and what I believed in, and, who I was as a person and how I was going to live my life. And so, I remember him, sort of saying to me, oh, come here, Koori girl, like, I'm like, oh, cool. I don't look like I'm, Aboriginal. And he's like, your mummies, Yarnies and uncles are, your nana is. Like, how can you not see that you are? So if someone that I respected, considered that's who I was, then that was a real honour. And that really made me understand about what way I wanted to live my life and who I wanted to be and what I wanted to aspire to.
Yeah. Do you have any role models now?
Well, you'd be one of my role models. I think I'm genuinely, I think your ability to tell stories that people can understand and relate to in a really empathetic way that don't make them, back off at it or get aggressive with it, and I think it's not just about, Aboriginal culture. I've just seen so much of what you've said about, the LGBTIQ plus community and about, eating disorders. You do so much promotions of different types of social inclusion and disadvantage and discrimination, and and I really admire that. And I've really had to think a lot about how I could emulate what you've been doing, not doing it in a job, but doing it as a person. And I just think that's really you've got to have a lot of strength to be able to do that in a way that people can absorb it and, change the way that they interact, and, particularly with delivering services. I found that a lot with the work that you did with, my workplaces. It really made a massive difference. And I could see that. So that's what made me think about having, the Bush Tucker farm, where we could try in some way, get families to come, have the kids, I've got a huge collection of Aboriginal artefacts, and, so teach them about, going fishing and, just laying in a paddock. There was nothing better as a kid, just laying in a paddock and the cows come up to you and, yeah, I just think get back to the simple things in life is what I'm trying to say. You know, try and just treasure every moment, and it doesn't have to cost anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, going to, you know, adventure playgrounds and paying heaps of money and, you know, just putting a rod in the dam and, you know, going yabbing or looking at the stars or, you know, all those kinds of things we're trying to implement that'll give people, you know, experience of what I had growing up.
Yeah. I've got a question. How did you get into health initially?
I think because I could.
Wasn't for the money, was it?
No. It was long. It was long hours. In a lot of cases, it was 24 hours a day. Yeah. And for a long time, I was the only Aboriginal worker at Monash Health, which, you know, is a huge. There's like 8 different sites, you know, attached to Monash Health. I think I could really see there was such a need for someone to nurture and to support and to, I could really make a big difference. And that's what I really wanted. I wasn't lucky enough to have kids. And so for me, I really struggled with, why am I here? What's the reason to get out of bed? You know, what really matters in life? And that really gave me an opportunity. You know, when people were having a baby, when people were dying, you know, I could in some way try and, you know, support them with that or make it a bit easier or, you know, mediate with the health, you know, professionals to get them what they needed. Or like, I can't tell you what it's like, you know, being a birth partner for, you know, a young Aboriginal girl who's got no one there with her. You know, getting to be there at that birth and coax her along. And, you know, I used to love doing cultural photos, you know, so I had a whole collection of, you know, possum skin cloaks and coolamans and, you know, so especially if they were going into like NICU, you know, going into intensive care where they couldn't have their baby with them, you know, having that photo where they could see their baby and see their culture, you know, in the photo. Yeah, it was just so much joy. And it was just so much pleasure for me to be able to organise that for them.
Yeah, yeah. So do you feel that each hospital, I want to ask a different question. Do all hospitals have liaison officers?
No. And even if they do have liaison officers, it doesn't mean that, you know, you get, well, it's interesting you say that actually. I recently had a hospital admission and my cousin also had a hospital admission and she had hers in Melbourne and I had mine, you know, in Warrnambool. And I was in the hospital for a week and the hospital didn't notify the Aboriginal Hospital liaison that I was there. Oh. And my cousin who was in Melbourne, the hospital didn't notify her, you know, liaison that they were there. So, yeah, it was interesting, you know, talking about that and kind of going, the systems don't always quite work with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest issue at the moment that Aboriginal people are facing?
Oh, self-determination.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's so much racism and prejudice. You know, it's hard for anyone to get housing, but if you're Aboriginal, you know, my cousin was actually saying she's working with someone who isn't Aboriginal but was working in Aboriginal organisations, and she faced so much racism they wouldn't support her with getting rental properties because she'd worked at Aboriginal organisations.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I think being able to support Aboriginal people into making their own decisions. It's been interesting because I've been meeting with a lot of the CEOs in my region and, you know, they're sort of saying the problem is most of the funding that they get are short term. Yeah. So being able to support an Aboriginal person into a role that's short term, you know, it's very hard to get someone who's going to be experienced or knowledgeable or, you know, most people want to be in something, well, I mean, you need to be. If you've got a mortgage or if you're renting, you need to be in long-term contracts, not short-term contracts. So, I just think there's so many issues with being able to give Aboriginal people some decision-making, processes in our systems.
Yeah.
That's why I think things like treaty and, the voice are going to be really important.
Yeah. What's good Aboriginal leadership look like to you?
I think it's that traditional, someone who, I was brought up that Aboriginal people, care for each other. You're part of one big family and you do what you can to support each other. So for me, an elder is someone who's got the wisdom and, or to be honest, no, that's wrong. It's even young people. I've seen it in young people, just following that cultural, norm of, we care for each other. We do what we can to support each other. We look at what's best for everyone and not just ourselves. That to me is what true leadership is about, is, doing the right thing in life.
Yeah. Do you believe that leaders are always up the front or sometimes at the back doing a bit of the pushing?
Oh, no, it's both. It's definitely both. You need to have, some people need to be in the front to be able to verbalise what the community wants.
Yeah.
But then you've always got those people that are in the background that are doing the background work and are, doing the checking on everyone and doing the liaising to find out what the community want and how do they want it. And so I think you need a mix of both.
Yeah. Now, you've been doing a lot of community engagement activities. What are some skills that you need to do effective engagement with community?
Respect. I think that's one in Aboriginal culture. I don't think you can undermine, how important it is and how much it was and is, should be, part of our culture is just plain simple respect. Actually listening to someone, not just assuming or making up what you think they want, because sometimes, it's exactly the opposite to what you think. I recently had a meeting with a group of elders and was talking about, an Aboriginal tourism project. And so I was sort of saying, we could facilitate, having an app that, could really promote your business and, could really give people the knowledge that you want them to know and, could really link them into coming to see you. And, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm so clever with this idea. How great is this? And they turned to me and they said, we don't want people on our country using technology.
Yeah.
Okay. We want them to be respecting this land and enjoying the experience of being on country and seeing the beauty of country. Yeah. We don't want them on technology. And I kind of went, oops, I was kind of run the wrong track there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really big wake-up call for me. You need to really listen and not assume and respect, that's what someone wants and how they want it.
There's a big issue, the big thing and push now for people to become allies for Aboriginal people. What do you say makes a good ally?
I think that listening. Listen to your Aboriginal colleagues, listen to the Aboriginal community and, don't speak on their behalf, but, back them up, support them, ask them, what can I do to be a good ally to you?
Yeah.
What would help you to feel supported? I'm open to hearing if I'm doing something that isn't culturally appropriate I don't know. I really want to learn from you and value what you have to contribute, to our workplace or our community. What would help? What would matter? And I also think it's, that old saying about if you stand by why something's being said and don't say something, you're as much a part of that problem because you're kind of accepting it. So I think to be a good ally is challenging yourself, to say something, because that's a hard thing to do sometimes. So if you hear someone saying something that you think isn't quite right, just say, well, I'm not sure about what you just said then. Can we discuss it a bit more? Can you tell me where you're coming from with that? Oh, well, when they say it, then say, well, have you thought about it in this way? Is this something that you've considered? Is this something that you'd like to know more about? So I think that's being a good ally.
So we just had National Reconciliation Week just recently. What does reconciliation actually mean to you?
Well, it's reconciling. So it's trying to bring two different, thoughts and processes together. And I think that, to me, is the beauty of Australia, is we've got lots of different ideas and cultures, and I just think that's really exciting. Let's take the best of everything and bring it together. Let's reconcile as a united country. I think what's the best things about having lived in Melbourne was you've got Lebanese and Chinese and Vietnamese restaurants, and I wouldn't be without that for the world.
Not so many where you live right now?
Well, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'd hesitated to move for quite a while because I'd felt like I'm going to lose things that I'm used to. And I can honestly say there's nothing that I've thought, because actually we've got an incredible, it's called the Gourmet Food Trail down here. So whereas in Timboon, when I grew up, there wasn't one cafe, one fish and chip shop, one restaurant, and there's several now. Timboon Ice Creamery is very well known.
Yeah.
So there's a distillery, there's cafes, there's bakeries, there's, so there's nothing that I had in Melbourne that I haven't got here. It's very different to when I grew up here.
Yeah. What's some things that you see that some non-Indigenous people don't do well in this reconciliation process, even though they've got good intent?
Well, you're talking to the people that got good intent, so I wouldn't like to criticise them. I think there's just so much talk about reconciliation at the moment. And I think there's so much negativity around it. There's so much confusion. There's so much misinformation. And I think, be intelligent, ask questions, do some research, listen to both sides, and really get yourself informed about what it is to be in a reconciliation process. What does it mean to have the voice? What does it mean to have the treaty? What does it mean to, be part of the acknowledgement of your Rook and the Commission? And, I think people don't understand how hard it is to be Aboriginal. You get all these misconceptions of you get a free car and a free house and, you don't have to work for it. But actually, you have to work harder to be Aboriginal because you're getting it from both sides. There's a lot of dysfunction, both from our community and outside our community.
So I can tell the viewers now, if you think that we're getting all this stuff for free, please leave some message comments at the bottom of the podcast. So when Leanne and I can see all the free stuff, we can go and pick it up.
Well, you know what I always say to people is ring up Centrelink and find out if the Centrelink payments are any different for an Aboriginal person than they are to anybody else. And they're not.
No. And that's a huge belief system. I hear that all the time. That AB study and OS study are two completely different payments, or they are different payments, but they're exactly the same pay. That makes
they're exactly the same amount. That's the thing that I just, you know, the media has a lot to answer for. It really does. It really hypes up being anti-Aboriginal. Yeah. Instead of the way I look at it, Australian Aboriginal people are the longest living nation in the world. Now, let's just think about that for a minute. Yeah. You know, they have to have done something right. And when we're starting this process of reconciliation, we're really coming to recognise we've done a lot of damage. And when I say we, you know, my dad's from Aboriginal, my mummy. So I'm part of that history as well. When you look at the research now, it's very, very clear the Aboriginal traditional ways of doing things we could learn so much from. So things like the, you know, bushfires and the fire burning, and, you know, we're really moving back to that philosophy because it worked.
Yeah. It didn't cause a huge bushfire.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing, is we didn't have that happening previously. You know, I think if you read a book like The Secret River, I think that's a really good way. Yeah, isn't it? I mean, it's been made into a movie and, you know, TV series and, you know, plays. But I think if you read that story and you really for yourself, you know, look at it from an Aboriginal perspective, look at it from, you know, the people that have come to this country's perspective. And, you know, there's something in between. But I think there's a lot to be said for, you know, the misconceptions of Aboriginal people.
What do you enjoy doing that's kind of cultural, but people wouldn't think it's normally cultural practices? The thing I'm thinking about is that you and I have been out to the theatre a number of times and seen plays and dances about culture, but people sometimes wouldn't see that as exploring culture because we're just going to the theatre.
Look, I set myself every month to do something that's not just my normal practice, because I do normal practice every day. You know, I'm walking on country. You know, I'm talking to my elders. I'm my ancestors. I'm, you know, meeting with community. That's all cultural practices. But I always try and, you know, read books that have an Aboriginal story so I can, you know, learn more and understand more from where I've come from, or, you know, do an Aboriginal course, you know, doing weaving or doing feather flowers, or, you know, and I think all of those skills that we've lost. I was really sad the other day. I was speaking with an elder and they knew my great-grandfather. And when we were clearing out my nana's house, I found a lot of, you know, beautiful artifacts there. And I had no idea that they were from her dad, you know? Yeah. And so this elder was saying to me, oh, your granddad, you know, he was an incredible artist. And I just went, artist? He painted? He said, no. He made boomerangs and he made clapsticks and he made, I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was really incredible. That was really special.
Yeah. What's one thing that you think that teachers at school should be reinforcing with non-Indigenous kids and Aboriginal kids?
Look, I can't speak highly enough for having Aboriginal elders coming and talking to the kids. You know, I think the wisdom in our elders being able to talk to kids don't have those prejudice and racism yet. You know, they learn that from adults, from the media, from. So I think being able to just have that frank, open, you know, conversations about what it is to be Aboriginal and what matters to us, and, you know, being able to ask the questions freely and honestly, I think that's the best thing for teachers, is just give them that access to, you know, the wisdom of elders.
Now, you're involved in a number of reconciliation action plans with organisations as well. How do you think organisations are doing with reconciliation?
Oh, look, in my experience, I think they struggle. I think it's very hard, you know, it's that feeling of I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, and am I going to step on toes, and are people going to get upset with me? And, you know, and I think you don't know what you don't know. So, you know, we as Aboriginal people shouldn't be getting upset. We should be going, well, isn't it great that they're putting out their hand to us to try and learn and to understand and to develop? And, you know, I think it's a really hard thing for an organisation to go through, creating a RAC.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most about being on reconciliation committees?
I love it when they ask questions. I love it when you can see that light bulb go off. I love it when they, you know, they do have that light bulb and then they say, I just didn't know, I didn't realise. And, you know, what you said just then meant, you know, actually yesterday, I got this beautiful message from one of the girls that I'd been on a rap, you know, previously with, and we sort of, because she was part of the committee and hadn't actually been on the actual rap process, so I hadn't met her face to face, and she said, oh, I've been wanting to talk to you. And so we had a conversation, and she said, you sound as nice as you come across in what you've written. And I just thought, oh, wow, isn't that an incredible compliment that, yeah, she thought I was nice.
You are nice.
Oh, thank you.
You are nice. And
my love to you too. You know, you don't know how people perceive you, and, you know, especially being Aboriginal, you face so much racism and prejudice. And, you know, for her to say, you know, meeting you in person, you know, you're just as nice as your words come across as, I thought, well, isn't that great that you're not going to go, oh, you know, Aboriginal people this or that, or, yeah, it was a positive experience.
Yeah. What's one thing that a lot of people may not know about Leanne?
How much I really, really, really want to be helpful and supportive and make a difference. You know, I don't think people realise just how much it matters to me to be able to contribute in some way.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, like I said before, not having kids, well, you don't get to leave that legacy and pass it down through the generations. And so for me, if I can help someone in some way or give them something that might influence the way that they might pass down to their kids, you know, that's an incredible honour for me. That's something I don't think people realise how much I really want to do that. Yeah.
Got a final question for you, and that is, what would you like our listeners to walk away with today from our conversations?
Don't just take things at first glance. Don't just assume. Don't just listen to what the media says or what the social media says or what you think. actually be proactive. You know, use your intelligence, tease out what's being said and what you're hearing, and, you know, ask some questions. You know, there's lots of forums that you can meet with Aboriginal people and, you know, get their knowledge and get their input. And, you know, there's lots of Aboriginal social media that you can access. So I think just make yourself educated so that you can be a real ally and you can be part of making a difference. And, you know, as I said before, it's really been devastating to me lately. You know, this real resurgence of racism and prejudice and anger. You know, I just think our allies need to be part of changing that. It's just not on. You know, no one should have to be, you know, constantly dealing with that kind of negativity towards them.
I want to say thank you for hanging with me for the last 45 minutes to nearly an hour. We did have some technical trouble to start off with, but we were able to get through that. So I just want to say thank you very, very much for hanging with me. And I'd like to invite you back for another podcast a little bit later in the series, if that's okay.
Oh, I'd be so honoured, AJ. I just love spending time with you. I love talking to you. And it's a really great thrill for me to get that opportunity to catch up with you, because I don't see you as much as I'd like to.
I know, we used to see each other quite a lot when you're in Melbourne, but now you're only ever a phone call or a Zoom call away.
I know, but, you know, it's just exciting when I hear your voice. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah, your laugh makes me laugh as well.
Oh, no.
There it is. Okay, guys, I want to say goodbye, but once again, thanks, Leanne, for hanging with us. So, guys, I'll see you at the next podcast.
Thanks, AJ. Love ya.
Love you, dude.
Bye.